Well, hey, good morning, gamers. Welcome to the BlueGamer Bluecast morning show, your source for video game news and discussion every morning, Monday through Friday, for about 30 minutes from a professional video game player, or enjoyer, I should say, not player, enjoyer. Do I really play professionally? I enjoy it professionally. Does that even make sense? I don't know. I'm just throwing words together for an opening. But no, good to see everybody. Yeah, we'll be getting into some of the latest gaming news here. And usually I like to start with what I've been playing. So, during the weekdays, usually it's a little more slim. I actually didn't play a whole lot yesterday. In fact, all I really did was I had some time. When I had some time, I decided, okay, what should I use with my time? And what I decided to do was go back into Harmony of Dissonance and try to get the other achievements I haven't got yet. And you know what? I was just thinking, because I know that this, this is on almost all systems now as part of the advanced collection. And so I'm curious how similar these achievements are, because I might want to go back and do them on the other platforms, because I have this on PC and Switch and Xbox, I think. What's been fun playing Harmony of Dissonance again. This was one that I thought was the lowest tier of these Metroidvanias back when it came out. But playing it recently, this is the one I've actually gone back to more, because I recently played through Symphony of the Night, which I think is the best one. Rondo of Blood, which isn't a Metroidvania. Order of Ecclesia, Portrait of Ruin, Aria of Sorrow, and Harmony of Dissonance. And I'm going to go through the others too. But this one had the most mix of feeling like a classic Castlevania, just with some Metroidvania thrown in. And I think I brought it up before, but I like how Juiced, the name of the main character, has his own room in the castle where you can, as you go through the castle and collect furniture and items, you can decorate. So yeah, one of the achievements I had to get was finding the last item, and I did with the help of guides. So what I did was I saw a picture online where someone showing, here is Juice's room completed. I looked through, and then I just happened to see one item I didn't have, and I'm like, okay, what is that item? And then I do research on where that item is. So on one end, if I'm playing this game for the first time, I wouldn't do that. I think that takes away from the fun. But I'm now at a point where I've really got the enjoyment I want out of the game, and really there's other things I'd like to see in the game, but do I want to spend my time just looking or use a guide to get to that? Otherwise I wouldn't. Does that make sense? It reminds me of when I was playing that Warhammer bolt gun, and there was this boss that was just insane, and my save file happened to be at the wrong spot, and I think I was going through that for an hour, where it would be like a 30-second loop of death. And I was like, okay, I'm going to turn on invincibility, because it was in the options to beat the boss, turn it off, and go and play. I think that's okay. I think that's perfectly fine to do that stuff every once in a while. We're not trying to prove, as gamers, we're not trying to prove anything by beating a game a certain way. I've realized, make the game with the tools it has as fun as you can make it for yourself. I think I learned that from Dark Souls and Bloodborne, because I would purposely play Dark Souls with the network settings off. And what I realized with the network settings on is, you get those signs on the ground that give you hints. And that's a community-driven thing, and I appreciate that. So with the later Souls games, let's see, actually it was Elden Ring. For the first half of it, I didn't even have the network on because of the issues. But I typically now for those Souls games have that on, so I could see, like, oh, wall ahead, or hidden wall ahead, or something, It's a lot of fun. And it's just reminding me more and more, thinking of the hidden wall, how much Dark Souls is really just a 3D Castlevania. Even 3D Castlevania wasn't a 3D Castlevania. But Dark Souls is literally, you got the hidden walls, you got the mimic chests, you've got the save points that you have to try, that you would use to then try to beat a boss, and then if you didn't beat the boss, you have to start, like, it's, the flow is so similar, it's crazy. Even when I played Bloodborne, that was the first Souls game I actually played through and beat. I used the cane whip because of the whole Castlevania connection I was making. Let's see. But are there roast turkeys in the breakable walls? That is a good point. No, there are not. There's not edibles in stone walls? Maybe there is. That's a good question. Okay, well that's it for Harmony of Dissonance. Again, I think this is a great Castlevania. I've been saying that a lot. Okay, let's jump into some news here. Nothing too crazy after yesterday. Really, I think my show covered really everything I saw from the rest of the shows I watched. In fact, one little thing I've learned, and it's something that I'm trying to, it's stuff I'm figuring out as I'm trying to figure out how can I make the streaming here work for me, to maximize what makes it fun for me. And sometimes I'm like, 30 minutes might be short. Sometimes I think it's the perfect length. When I was watching a live stream yesterday that goes for about an hour, they ended up touching on all the same news topics I did, except because it's stretched out, they then will just kind of repeat themselves, but then double down as they're repeating themselves, and then the chat has to correct. I think when you stay on a topic too long, you tend to get in the weeds or maybe in directions you don't need to, and I think that helps me understand, okay, 30 minutes for now is fine. Multiple people might help make it longer, but okay, let's see. The Witcher 3 Red Kit mod editor coming May 2024. Wow, that's interesting. So, one thing I understand is didn't CD Projekt Red decide to go Unreal Engine 5? I think they did. So I wonder, I could be completely wrong about that, but I want to say I heard that. Let me see if I do, oops, wrong button. So I do Unreal. No, they don't call it out here. I heard they were going to do that because of the issues they had getting Cyberpunk up and running. So, but I think it's cool though that there's this, development kit they have, and just to have an editor available for people, I think is amazing. Adds some extra life into it. Other than that, I won't try it. Okay, Ghibli-inspired life sim Star Sand Island revealed. Interesting. Yeah, another little life sim. Okay. In less than a day, Hades 2 Early Access has doubled Hades' all-time peak player count on Steam. Very cool. Very cool that this sequel is seeing success. I've got to admit that first Hades, it seemed neat, but I was not compelled at all by its gameplay to keep going. I find that very strange because it is so popular. Maybe one day I'll get back to it. Yeah. Media Molecule's next project is more of a game than a creative tool, co-founder claims. Okay, so that's kind of funny because, well, it says more of a game than a creative tool. It could still have a lot of creative tools. Sony completely messed up with Media Molecule because we could see that the user-generated content, being able to make and edit things is very popular in games. I think Dreams, was that the last game they had made? Where, yeah, it was all where you can make your own game in it, but it was locked down to PlayStation. Just, another example of companies not really understanding what they have and how to make use of it. So the latest Little Big Planet that I think came, the Sackboy Adventures, I think it was called. They came out on PS5. I heard it was really good. I haven't played it, and I kind of do want to go and play it because it's also multiplayer. Anyway, more of a game than a creative tool. Really interested to see what that turns out to be. Nintendo profits rise to $6.2 billion ahead of quiet year. Well, they're not in a rush to release a new Switch. You can see by that. I think the latest rumor is April 2025 that it would come out by. So that's exactly what happened. I was doing some research with the Game Boy Advance. They had a Game Boy Advance kind of prototype idea in 1996, and they just decided not to release it because the Game Boy had 80% market share, and I think was just doing so well that they would hurt themselves by releasing this Advance. So they just kind of waited, and that's kind of interesting. And I guess in the meantime, they did the Game Boy Color. It's that's that system refresh thing we see every once in a while. Yeah, very interesting. And it's been interesting that since I've set up my, I'll have to show it off sometime, where there's a little corner in my office where I have a screen, and I have my, here it is. I have my main Android emulator plugged into that, so it displays on the screen, and Emulation Station has a screensaver where it's just your games in your collection and it just shows videos of them being played. And I'll see a lot of Game Boy Color stuff on there, and it's more of because I'm impressed. Like, well, what is this retro-looking game that looks good? And it's Game Boy Color, and I'm really surprised how many frames of animation they can have for a main character, how good that can look in general. So it's really neat sometimes when you get these. Like at that time, Nintendo was somewhat capable of higher end hardware, but when there are limitations put into your hardware, sometimes that helps. That helps a lot. Even it reminds me how during when the PS3 came out, there was the complaints about it was hard to develop for. So a lot of the games looked better on 360, but if you look back, there's a lot of fun and unique games on the PS3 anyway. Anyway, like you see how I could totally change subjects really quick? Brazil adopts breakthrough legal framework for games. What does that even mean? Brazil has officially adopted a new law redefining video games in the country and establishing guidelines to guarantee and regulate its industry's future growth. Okay, this could do with like taxing. Yeah, reduce tax burdens, because that's like a big issue. And that was what was in that information when we heard about South Korea wanting to make a console, because there's some of that same information when you have electronics from importing from other countries. Like, I guess in the US, we're just this import-export nation. So like we get all these things that come in. It's pretty neat. But other countries, there's a lot more limitations to what's being imported. So South Korea, along with Brazil, they don't really ever get like good, strong console market support. That's why, and I think I brought this up in another show, that Tectoy ended up licensing the use of the Sega Master System hardware from Sega and just created their own brand in South America, made their own games. Like I said, ported Duke Nukem to the Sega Master System, although it's a Tectoy device. So this is cool that these companies are doing this, because I do think, like we're seeing with the issue with Helldivers 2, how Sony wants to turn on PSN for everyone to, sign into PSN. That's fine. But then you realize 170 countries would be blocked. And it's like, wait a minute. Let's first make sure anyone could play anywhere, and then make it where they have to sign in. So I'm hoping that's where we get to eventually, where there's no restrictions across countries. This helps for multiplayer game. This will help the game industry in general. Think of how many markets are being left out in that respect. That's pretty interesting. Nintendo breaks silence on Switch 2, promises announcement by April 2025. So that's interesting. An announcement by April 2025. There's multiple things going on here. I think one has to do with the economy, in terms of Nintendo can see that it's hard on other companies, so they can kind of, chill a little bit. Also, the way the market is changing in terms of people using handheld devices, I think Nintendo is interested to see what type of handheld or mobile hardware will be coming from Xbox and PlayStation, because I think Nintendo has that market, and they've always had that market. But it could, and that's the thing, even though the PSP and Vita were great, Sony just kind of gave up on it when they shouldn't have, right? It's like if Disney gave up after Iron Man and decided, we can't do an MCU. No, you got to just keep at it. And I think Nintendo is trying to see what these companies are going to do. So you have the market stalling. So Nintendo has some time. You have where there's rumors of these other handhelds. So Nintendo wants to see what's going to be announced or shown off, and see release dates for what Microsoft and Sony are going to do. And I think those are the main culprits here, because there's almost no reason for Nintendo to really release something right now, especially with the way the economy is in general. We don't know what's going to be coming from Microsoft and Sony. I kind of said that 4 times already. I'm just very fascinated. I cannot wait to see what happens, because it could be that whatever the Switch 2 is, it's already done. I even see, it's interesting. It says the announcement will be made by March 31st, 2025. That makes me think it would come out later. It's almost like they're continuing to push it. I get like a report on this yesterday on a podcast. We're saying, well, that must mean they're in production right now of the unit. And on one hand, I'd be like, I don't know. On the other hand, I'm sure to a degree they are, especially when we've been seeing leaks from other manufacturers that have had hands on time, like controller manufacturers. Yeah, MobaPad, who makes the best Switch Joy-Cons. The company that makes the best Switch Joy-Cons, I would say even objectively, because it has Hall effect, mechanical keys, back buttons, etc., etc. And it has like the more of the pro controller feel to it. You know, they're the ones that said, yeah, this is what the new Joy-Cons are gonna do, and there was a whole leak on that. They probably know. Princess Peach Showtime and Mario vs. Donkey Kong have already sold over 1 million. And one, that's nuts, because to me, these games seem like nothing. But if you look at the install base, you look at the games available for Nintendo players right now, there is not much. And the name Princess Peach does it, and the name Mario vs. DK does it. So I could see 1 million. Good for them, though. I haven't played the City, even though I downloaded the demo. Let's see, there's a Nintendo museum coming, but, oh, in Kyoto. But it's been delayed? Okay. Helldivers 2 Steam reviews see a huge positive turn as players agree to reverse their ratings. It's so crazy to see this whole thing happen. Yeah, I just, Sony needs to, it's weird because, like, again, I guess I could be going on about this. I don't really know. I don't really need to. The thing is, I think it's okay if you need an account to sign into. That helps in a lot of ways, not just security, but also to, back up your data in a way, maybe not like data of a game, but just maybe a paper trail. It's just the country blocking thing. That was dumb. Okay, Nintendo Direct confirmed for June, focusing on Switch titles for late 2024. So, here's something interesting to speculate. If it is true that Nintendo is delaying the reveal or even the release of the Switch 2, which seems like it could be another year out because of what's going on, Nintendo has games that are complete. From what I understand, there's a Fire Emblem game that's complete. They're just waiting for when they should release it. This would be a good time. The Metroid Prime 4 seems like it would be a good time. Would you release that on a Switch or a Switch 2? The thing is, historically, if you look back, I think even with the Wii, or no, the GameCube got Twilight Princess, and then there was a Wii version. The Wii U got Breath of the Wild, and then there was a Switch version. And that's Zelda. That's their biggest. So could they do that with Metroid? I think so. It's the other part of that is going to be how big of a hardware difference will the Switch 2 be, because from the Wii U to the Switch, it was more like, okay, let's kind of streamline the presentation for how people are playing a game. Instead of making it a pad and the console, we'll just make it all in one. And so the graphics didn't have necessarily the biggest leap. Again, because a game like Breath of the Wild was on both. But with something like Metroid Prime 4 and with the Switch 2 potentially having super crazy graphics, what if Nintendo releases, Metroid Prime 4 on Switch, and then when the Switch 2 announced, there is like a Prime 4 special edition or upgraded edition, or I don't know how they're going to, there's so many ways they could settle that. Could they they already said the games are going to be backwards compatible, but what about games when there's different versions? Like, maybe I could play the Switch version of Metroid Prime 4 on the Switch 2, but what if there's a Switch 2 version of Metroid Prime 4? So a lot of things up in the air, because I'd also think that Nintendo has a 3D Mario waiting, and they're going to wait for the launch of the Switch 2. So I think we're going to have a lot of questions for at least the next 8 months, especially if they say by March 2025 they're going to announce Switch 2. So we've got a while. Wow, Alan Wake developer Remedy cancels multiplayer project to focus on other games. That is interesting. Because I remember hearing about this recently. Codename Vanguard was a premium cooperative multiplayer game being created by a small team. The company has a second Okay, that's the one I'm thinking about. Okay, so interesting. So Remedy had 2. Yeah, to decide, I think it's a good time. Really just focus in on what you can, reduce what you're doing right now. I guess any overhead is that you can reduce. It's probably the smartest thing with how the market is. Let's see. Anything else? Again, Nintendo to announce Switch 2 before April 2020. But, June is before April 2025. So, yeah, let's see. Let's see. Switch ships 141 million units. So, I was doing some Game Boy research, and the Game Boy Advance family of systems sold it because we have the SP and the Micro, so a total of like 80 something million, which is crazy. That, even for that time period, Nintendo, handhelds are where it's at. It doesn't, like, I think consoles and PCs can have a big market. We see that with Power World and Helldivers. But I think handheld is where you go to get into more hands, literally and figuratively. And maybe that's exactly what Microsoft knows and is talking about. Like, when they're always saying we can't go much further with the console market. There's not much we can do with the console market. I mean, what if they are literally saying because the handheld market is where to go? I feel like that is. I feel like the future of any electronic company that has some sort of something that you're watching and viewing, they're going to have a handheld version. Let's see. Any other? No, it seems like a lot of the news is really about Nintendo. It looks like Helldivers 2 gets 200,000 positive reviews in one day. So that's funny because there was like an initiative of like, Helldivers, let's go give positive reviews. I thought that was funny. Let's see. Ultronima saying limitation sparks innovation. That's a great, succinct way to put it, because that is the truth. That'd be nice, but remember, companies have tried to make things always online when there are countries that simply can't do that. Yeah, it's, the more I'm understanding that aspect, that and you wonder why, and probably a lot of it has to do with being able to get market details or regulations within these countries for. Certainly, it's like, it could be a country's might saying, "Hey, you have to change this in order for this to work," and simply maybe their hands are tied. It's very interesting. It's very interesting as you age. Like when I grow up, and then I realize where people hate other people for reasons, and it's like, what is that real? And then you realize video games aren't available in every country. It's like, what? Life is weird, I tell you. Well, the Super Mario Brothers movie was the most profitable movie last year. And hey, this goes for anyone that's into filmmaking, any of those movie studios. If you make your property have the essence and look like it has the essence of its source material, it might just do good because of that. Barbie also, Fallout. Rainbow Cotton, interesting. It was a shooter. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Look at that. What is this getting a release on PS5? Huh. More video game movies and TV shows are coming. I bet. So that's cool. Let's see. Anything else going on? I think that's about it. I think I've covered some pretty interesting things. Oh, Resident Evil 9 location to be set on an island, it's claimed. Okay, so just wording it like that makes it sound like it's going to be an open world island. I bet they're going to do that. It's going to be a giant open world island. Cool. New PS5 Pro GPU details leaked. Is this new or old? Let's see. The PS5 Pro GPU will have a clock speed of, I think this is old info, but it's still cool. Yeah, I could just keep going and going, but no, that was cool. It's it's been fun recently with it. I feel like I can feel this lull in gaming where there's not a lot of big releases, and it's really allowed me to enjoy, spending time playing older games. I wouldn't like this Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. I would never really play that, but there was really the time to do that. And then, other things like being able to go back to my GBA games. I don't mind this little lull because as soon as that Elden Ring DLC hits, I'll be all into that. Let's see, Ultronimus. I don't think they've done tropical zombies yet in RE. Closest was cruise liner zombies. Yeah, I'm down for Resident Evil. I bet it's going to be third person, like the RE2 remake or RE4 remake that came out that was really popular, and just be open island. Open island. Anyway, all yeah, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for tomorrow. Have a good rest of the day, and always, post in the comments what games you could be playing. I'm always interested in what people are playing. So, yeah, Tronimus, thanks for your activity in the chat. I made it a lot of fun this morning, and yeah, I'll talk to everyone later. See you.